Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of our 5 Adventures. So today we are canning preserving green tomatoes. I got a ton of tomatoes given to me from someone. Some were orange, some were green, most were green. It takes a while for them to turn and I just want to move them along because even when they're green they can start going bad even as they turn. So we're canning the green tomatoes into Verde Salsa, and I'm going to show you what you need to do and how you would can and preserve them so they are safe to eat later. Let's dive in. Now your first step is with your clean tomatoes, you're going to core them. You could parboil them and peel them. It takes a lot longer, a couple minutes for the skin to come off on the green tomatoes. You don't have to, it's all up to personal preference. I normally would skin them, but I've skinned so many tomatoes over the last couple weeks, I'm just kind of burnt out. I've already cut a lot of tomatoes from this batch from this person, but I didn't need to show you all of them. I've already got a full bowl behind me, ready to go, ready to get chopped up to be made into the salsa. So I have a lot more than what you're seeing. You're seeing a lot of the small ones now. They still are usable. Now when they're this little, I just kind of cut the whole top off. You might lose a little bit more, but like that one's bad. Some of them you're gonna get bad ones. It's just what happens. Like I said, they were given to me. This one I'm just gonna cut the whole one half off because a lot of that side's bad. We're just gonna core the one side. When they're given to you for free, it's not a big deal if you have a couple that you have to toss. Honestly, even if it's coming out of your garden, if you have a couple that are just further gone than you would like to use, just toss them. It's not the end of the world. But I try to use what I can, try to save what I can. But if I wouldn't typically eat it, I'm not putting it in a can. So, you're going to just keep on cutting those cores out. And once that's done, you're ready to dice them, basically. As small, fine, thin as you would like. You can make it more of a liquidy salsa, or you can make them more chunky. This is kind of similar to doing the, what is it, tomatillo salsa. It's very similar because green tomatoes have more of that sour taste. But it's not 100% tomatillo salsa. It's tomatoes instead of tomatillos. But it's just a easy way of taking care of all those green tomatoes, because at the end of the season, we all know you always have a ton of green tomatoes, and people know you can do fried green tomatoes, which I did save a couple for that myself. But a lot of people are like, what else can I do with these things? I don't want to wait for them to turn. I think they're garbage. Some of them just don't ever turn, I've noticed. And they go bad before they turn. So people just don't know what to do with them. So I'm just kind of showing you an option of what you can do with those green tomatoes at the end of the season when you get an overabundance. And you're just trying to save what you can or utilize it or whatever the case may be. I'm just kind of showing you, hey, there is another use. Instead of just basically letting them all rot into the earth, you can take them off the vine and you can actually use them. So I have another possibility of getting more tomatoes given to me. So there's a possibility we'll be making more tomato canning. I'm taking whatever I can get right now. I have an overabundance of apples that are waiting to be taken care of, and then I had all these tomatoes. So I'm gonna finish off the last couple and we'll bring you back when I get to the next step. Now for this step, it is all going to be personal preference. I'm using the immersion blender and I'm getting them down pretty fine. want to just put a ton of liquid in there if most of it's chunks. So, 1 sec. So the recipe I'm using calls for 7 cups of the green tomatoes. I've got a half cup here because I can't find my other one. So, it's common. Now for this step, you need 5 to 10 jalapenos or habaneros or whatever pepper your choice is, depending on the heat level you want. I have 6 in there because they are huge jalapenos. I don't de-seed mine. And 2 medium red pepper, or red onions, sorry. So, you also need 2 cloves of garlic. Put it in the fridge for a bit because I can't do everything else right this minute. But it is a sloppy looking mess. But it's tasty. Now you could leave your tomatoes a little bit more chunky and it wouldn't be quite as sloppy looking. But I did mine very pulverized. So we'll be back in a bit. So I almost forgot to mention you need a half cup of lemon juice or lime juice in your salsa. And then bring it to a boil. Once it's boiling, you're going to add in half a cup of cilantro, 2 teaspoons of salt, 2 teaspoons of cumin, 1 teaspoon of pepper, and 1 teaspoon of oregano. It's already boiling now, and then once that's all added in, you give it 5 minutes at a simmer. So I'm going to go ahead and add that stuff in right away. I've already measured it out. Here's our dry seasonings. And then here's our cilantro and oregano. I'm going to have to knock the rest of that in. But now you're just going to let that simmer and mix it in. We'll be back. Now to can this salsa, you would use one of these funnels, a nice wide mouth funnel, and you fill up your jar to 1/2 inch of headspace, which would mean the top of your food is a 1/2 inch from the top of the jar. Once it's full, you take some type of tool, a butter knife works as well, and kind of go down the sides of the jars. You can see you're going down the sides and trying to get the air bubbles out. Then, if you got food up here on the lip, you're going to wipe that down with a cloth. You don't want to leave food up there because then it won't seal. And you put your lid, which is sterilized, on top of the jar, which is also sterilized, by the way. How to do this one-handed. And tighten this to fingertip tight. So you don't want to have it excessively tight. You just want it tight enough to hold that lid. Now it's ready to go in the water bath canner. Make sure the water covers the rims all the way over the lids of the jars by at least 1 inch. And then you wait till the water starts boiling. Once the water starts boiling, you put the lid on your pot and you begin the processing time of 20 minutes at a boil. After 20 minutes is up, you would turn off the heat, take the lid off of the pot, and let your salsa stay in the water for another 5 to 10 minutes before you remove it and put it on a towel. Try not to tip your jars as you're removing them to get the excess water off the lids or any of that. You risk breaking your seal. Put it on the towel and let it sit for 12 to 24 hours before you check the seal. So after 24 hours of waiting and letting your canned goods cool naturally, you always take the rings, as you can see in the pile here, off of the jars. You don't want the rings to stay on. Some people store them with the rings on, but if you do, keep them light, like not very tight, because too much tightness of those rings could cause this pressure, or the pressure around this band, to cause the seal to break prematurely. So you don't want to keep those rings on. I don't store them with the rings on. If I do, I put them on very lightly just for stacking purposes. So that way the stacked can isn't sitting on the seal either. So there's reasons. But you're going to check the tops. When it's a fresh seal, fresh can, there's a bubble right here, kind of like on jelly containers, that is up. And when you press it, you'll hear the pinging sound. You want to press the center, make sure there's no pinging. Make sure there's no pinging anywhere in the jar lid at all, just to make sure that there's no like broken seal anywhere. But as you see, there's no broken seals going on. And then you just want to kind of lightly pull on the edges. You don't want to pull heavy. You don't have to necessarily pick it up by the edge. But if there's any broken seal, it's going to just lift off, or you're going to hear some hissing. You're going to know it's broken. So you're going to check that. Once that's said and done, you can now move this to your shelf. Make sure it's a sturdy shelf. I don't like stacking my jars if I don't have to, because I don't want to risk breaking a seal or it falling and breaking. It's a lot of work for it to break. This was a full day of canning, and this is what I got. So it's a lot of work for what you get, but it tastes amazing. So that's how you would check the seal the next day. And now you can move it to your shelf after you label it. You're of course going to label your jar, what it is, the date you did it. And you typically have about 1 year of shelf life. Some people eat it 2 and 3 years later. 1 year is usually the recommended. So happy canning, guys. Catch you on the next one.